Welcome to Foodytime. I'm Jay Fettigan, and this is part 2 of my interview with poet Charles Coe. Charles always tells the best stories, and it's really entertaining. And in this episode, he talks about everything from White Castle to his garlic orgies, which he throws for his friends a couple of times a year. Enjoy.
Years ago, I retired from my full-time job about 9 years ago at the
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts Cultural Council. I used to run grant programs there.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of my job before Zoom and virtual meetings, I would go to other parts of the country to sit on review panels, grant review panels.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went down to New York, I had this routine. There was this nice little hotel I stayed in, which is unfortunately no longer with us. I would take the train to Madison Square Garden, and
Mm-hmm.
this hotel was a 50-minute walk away. But on the way to the hotel, there was a White Castle on 7th Avenue. And I would stop in the White Castle and I would get four cheeseburgers and have a Diet Coke. And that's what I would do.
Yeah.
It would remind me of my childhood.
Right. Well, isn't the smell? Isn't it the most primitive sense that we have? Is the sense of smell?
Smell, it is the most primitive. It is totally atavistic. And
Right.
sometimes you can be moving through space and all of a sudden you're kind of something happens to you. You're in this mood. You're having these thoughts, and you don't even consciously realize what's happening,
Right.
but you've smelled something that makes a connection to the past,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely it's a not conscious thing at all.
Yeah, I know. Like perfumes will send me back to my mother always wore Chanel number 5, and whenever I would,
Mine too.
as you said, it's a trigger that you don't even know is happening, and then you realize it's like, oh, that's Chanel number 5. You make the connection, and then it certainly always makes me uh, makes me aware of her presence, even long after she's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You know, when I was a kid and I would go with my father on Saturday mornings when we would go fishing, and he would take our ginormous station wagon to the service station to get it filled. Your father stopped and he got out of the car to lean against it, and the other guys would come and they were kind of shooting the breeze, and Dad would give me a quarter to go into the garage to that cooler, the floor coolers
yeah.
with the ice and the water, and they would have the sodas,
Hmm.
and you would put your arm down and you grab your soda, and your arm would freeze,
Yeah.
to the point of needing to be amputated, and you pull out your drink, and you come back,
Hmm.
and that smell
Hmm.
was in the air,
Yeah.
and this was when a smell connects you with something, when that smell imprints on you,
Hmm.
it's something that is with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's so I know it's buried so far deep inside you that in your brain that I don't think we could ever you could ever lose that those memories that are brought back. And music is similar to that too. I mean, although it's hearing, but certainly music will take you back.
Oh,
And I know
oh,
that friends whose parents have suffered from memory issues later on in life, Alzheimer's or dementia of some kind. Um, a friend of mine who's a musician would go and visit his mother, and he'd bring his guitar. And when he started playing songs, she would sing along, just as somebody who would never say anything.
right.
She'd pretty much lost the power of speech, but she could still sing, and she would know all the words and know the melody, and the brain is a funny it's a funny organ. That's for to say the
That
least.
that it is. You know, Oliver Sacks,
Mm-hmm.
uh, neurologist, the brain researcher.
Mm-hmm.
who wrote a lot about phenomena associated with memory and cognition.
Hmm.
He he had this one book called Musicophilia,
Hmm.
where he talked about brain phenomena related to music.
Mm.
And there was one case where there was a man with Alzheimer's who had been a choral conductor.
Mm.
But if you put him in front of a choir that was singing a piece that he had conducted,
Hmm.
he could conduct it with nuance and sensitivity, not just waving his arms, but
Right.
bringing the sopranos up and backing the basses off or whatever.
Wow.
And you ask yourself how,
Right. Where
how,
did that come
how
from?
where did that come from? And the answer is uh, we don't know.
Hmm.
And what it makes you realize is that sometimes questions are more interesting than answers.
Yes.
And there, Oliver Sacks, uh, a few months before he died, had an essay in the New Yorker called Gefilte Fish.
Hmm.
And it was about how when he was at the end of his life, uh, there were very, very few things that he could eat, but
Hmm.
that he had this housekeeper, this cook, an African American woman
Hmm.
who learned how to make gefilte fish, and she called it filter fish. And he loved it when he was a kid. He loved gefilte fish when he was a kid,
Hmm.
and the gefilte fish she made was the best that he or any of his friends had ever tasted. So
Mm.
there was this demand that she make it for her for their gatherings and so forth. And he speculated about how when he was a child, gefilte fish was one of the first solid foods that he ate
Oh,
when
wow.
he was a little kid. And it was one of the foods that was ushering him out of this mortal life.
Mm. Wow.
And it is um, my favorite personal experience essay ever.
Mm.
And to read it it's humbling,
Yeah.
not just the level of craft and intelligence,
Hmm.
but the wisdom and the spiritual strength and presence for
Hmm.
him to write this at this time when he knew he just had just a little while longer in on this mortal coil.
Mm.
It's a wonderful piece,
Yeah. So
and
it's,
it's about food.
yeah.
It's the role that food played in in ushering a person in to and out of
Hmm.
uh, this incarnation. Hold on for a second. Let me go grab something that I think you will like. Just a
Oh,
second.
great. Okay.
Do you know about the Bad Joke Wednesday thing I do on
I do.
Facebook?
I do. Yeah, on Facebook. I think I've contributed a few from time to
Oh,
time.
good. Right, right, right. Well, on the first Wednesday of the month, I do this thing, Bad Joke Wednesday, where I post a bad joke and I invite people to post their jokes. And over the years, it's become quite a thing,
Hmm.
and I enjoy it tremendously. And there are hundreds really bad jokes at this point. At some point, I might put into a book and sell it to benefit some nonprofit. So that's something that we might see coming down the road in the not distant future.
That's
But
a great idea.
that's a great joke, man. It's very droll.
Um, and so with food, I know that I've had some memorable meals that that have stuck with me. I don't know if you're. I am fortunate in that I could eat something and still remember what it tasted like or what the experience was like years down the road. Do you have any? Have there been any moments we talked about Thanksgiving and other things, but some spectacular meal or experience that you had that you just would never forget?
Good question. Well, back in 1988, I was in um, the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing an artist exchange program,
Mm-hmm.
and we were we were in Moscow, in Tbilisi in Georgia, and in Baku in Azerbaijan, 150 miles from the Iranian border. But when we were in Georgia, there was this evening where we were treated to a feast on this farm, and uh, there was there was beef and chicken on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
There was this incredible array of vegetables, grilled vegetables. There were these salads. There were these desserts, uh, and it was just it was stunning. It was the bounty
Mm-hmm.
of this this environment where people valued hospitality
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and real food above a lot of other things. And they were so excited to have us there, and they were so hospitable. And it's the most amazing meal that I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I think it took me 2 days to even have an appetite
I
after
know. I've experienced that where you come back from, especially visiting France. You come back from France, and absolutely nothing interests me in terms of food for about a week or 2 weeks. It's almost like sensory overload. You know the
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you know, the Italians taught the French how to cook.
Oh, I did not know that.
The high French cuisine interests me not the slightest,
Mm-hmm.
but the uh, provincial cooking,
Yeah.
the cooking of ordinary people,
Mm-hmm.
interests me profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you read any of Peter Mail's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he wrote A Year in Provence.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He talks about French provincial cooking
Mm-hmm.
with great affection,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that people do that are not high cuisine, not high Parisian cuisine with the
Right.
the frou-frou. That stuff doesn't. I have zero interest in any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Zero interest. Uh, Italy. I've not been to Italy, but I would love to go. I would I would love to go to Rome for a few days, 3, 4 days, and hang out and do all that cultural stuff. But then I would want to get out of Rome. I
Right.
would want to go out into the provinces
Mm-hmm.
and see how people out in the country
Yeah.
cook. And then I would want to go to Sicily.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to look at the ancient Roman ruins,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to sample the Sicilian food.
Which is very different from
Yes,
the northern
very,
Italian.
very different. I have a sketch of a short story from, uh, you've got 72 projects you're working on. You can't work on them all at the same time.
Right.
I made some notes about this story where it's set in the 50s or the early 60s,
Mm-hmm.
where there's this American banker who is sent to Sicily
Mm-hmm.
to teach the local banks and businesses how to do business with American banks.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy goes with his wife and son. His
Mm-hmm.
son is about 12,
Yeah.
and they're from the Midwest, and the son has grown up on tuna noodle casserole,
Right. Yes.
and so he winds up hanging out with these local Sicilian boys, and one takes him over to his uncle's house where the uncle feeds them grilled rabbit sausages, right?
Hmm.
And another
Mm,
is his aunt feeds him uh, homemade pasta with vegetables from the garden.
mm,
And then one day they take him down to the beach and they get mussels and they have a little oven grate.
uh,
They plug from one of the oven and they set up a little fire and they've
mm,
got, um, they put these mussels, they make a fire on the beach and they have these mussels and they have a little hot sauce and some lemon to squeeze on the mussels. And so this is it's like a sexual coming of age story, only it's
right,
not about sex, it's about food.
right. Oh, that sounds great. Well,
So now maybe I'll get back to that now.
should
But
well if you'd like, I could contribute one little thing that you might be able to use because I I grew up in New Jersey mostly, and as we'd said, I only ever ate especially like soft breads and things, and never it was a prepackaged, pre-sliced bread. And the first time traveling overseas with my parents when I was probably around that age, 10 or 11. I couldn't believe how painful it was to eat like real bread, like a loaf of French bread or a loaf of Italian bread. The hard crust is something I had never encountered, and I have this still have this vivid memory of like my gums being sore because because I had never experienced anything like that.
right. Well, somebody said that, how do you know what's really healthy bread? And the answer was, if it's really healthy bread, it should hurt when I hit you in the head with a loaf.
Oh, and the country cooking anywhere is I believe is always the best. I was again very fortunate to travel quite a bit with my parents when I was growing up, um, and my father's one of his business clients was actually an order of monks, the Carthusian monks, and uh, and we would often visit different monasteries in different parts of the world. So we're uh, in the French Alps at Les Grandes Chartreuse, the monastery, and it was the middle of the dead of winter, and there was this little. She was fairly young, a little nun who was doing the cooking for the people who were staying in the guest house, which is where we were. And she said, "Oh, she's making uh, a vegetable soup for lunch." And I can even remember at a young age, it's like this is before you could buy everything anywhere. This was um, in the late '60s, and thinking to myself, where is she going to get the fresh vegetables to make vegetable soup? I couldn't even imagine it. And what she did was she stored all of the vegetables from the summer and the fall and dried them. And then she would take them all and she would, with a mortar and a pestle, she would grind them down to a fine powder, mixing all the different vegetables together, all ground down into this powder so they were indistinguishable from each other, and make the soup out of that. And honest to God, to this day, I can taste what that soup tasted like. I've never had anything like
Wow.
it. I've never had anything like it before. I've never had anything like it since.
Wow.
You couldn't
Wow.
tell the carrots from the peas from and it was just all one flavor. It was just remarkable.
When you look back on experience you had with food that was, life altering,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
like Anthony Bourdain with the oysters, and you realize that this is something that it was lightning in a bottle, that
Mm-hmm.
it was an experience you had,
Right.
and not one that you can recreate
Mm-hmm.
either through your own hands or go to some place that will serve you that thing.
Right.
And that's really something. It's
Mm-hmm.
really something.
Yeah.
Wow. Like going to an agriturismo.
Mm-hmm.
Agriturismos in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
These are the farms where um, people are able to keep their farms going with support from the government to make their farm a place where people can stay. So it's kind of like a B&B
Right.
on a farm. And you can go there, and some of the agriturismos are also producing their own wine. So here
Right.
you are somewhere in Tuscany, uh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or wherever, and you're sitting having these incredible meals that are the results of the things that the people there grow,
Right.
including animals they raise, and you're
Mm-hmm.
drinking the wine that was produced from the vineyards that, you know, you can see if you turn to the left,
Right.
and you're thinking, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, uh, what am I experiencing now?
Mm-hmm.
Like this, there's so many experiences that we have in this modern world where you got the coin, you got the cash, you can have the experience.
Yeah.
But there are other places where you can't you can't just pull out money
Mm-hmm.
and go anywhere and
Right.
have this experience. There are places you have to go to this place. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be with these people,
Right.
and you can have that experience there. I mean, I, I've I've not done a lot of I've not done any European travel. I've only been to Ireland. I was teaching there some years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a great time. But but I would love to go to Tuscany.
Oh yeah.
I would love to go to England to do one of those walking tours of Cornwall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, I would love to take one of those small cruise ships that go through the fjords
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
down the Danube,
Right.
something like that, you know, with a couple, 300 people on the whole ship.
Right.
Something like that appeals to me. You know, the food, the singular nature of food
Mm-hmm.
in different regions. There's so much pressure to standardize.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so there are places where you can still experience local, uh, like timeless food traditions, and
Mm-hmm.
something like that I would really like to do. You know,
Yeah.
to get a pasty in Cornwall
Mm-hmm.
made in this little neighborhood shop.
There was a place where I've stayed a couple of times in Italy. It's in Sabina, which is just at the base of where Tuscany and Umbria touch, just about an hour or so outside of Rome. And I just remember one time sitting on the patio that was up on the second floor and looking out, and Luciana, who was the hostess, would say, you know, everything that was at the table, everything that she was serving, you could see where it all came from that the deck. She would point out to this house over there on the hill that these are the people
Wow.
that make the bread, and point down, and it's like they're the pigs that they use for the prosciutto, and there's, well, you point over there, and that's where all the vegetables came from, and point to the chickens, and those are the chickens that we're eating, and and absolutely, that's not an experience you can have in modern day America, that's for sure. But everything was you could literally see where all the food came from that you were eating from that one little table. It was absolutely wonderful and amazing food, and
Wow.
it
Yeah,
was,
you're right. In America, that's just not what's happening here.
yeah.
And there are pockets of people who are really trying to do local sourcing, and
Hmm.
it's happening all over the country.
Yeah.
But it's not at the level that you're talking, where everything on your plate, you could, from the wine to the bread to the
That's right.
prosciutto or whatever, to the vegetables. It's like, look around. This is where it came from. When I was in Ireland, I was teaching in Dingle
Hmm.
on the Western Peninsula, and one day in the middle of the program, everybody had a day off to do whatever. And so the faculty rented this van, this tour van. And so we had a tour of the Dingle Peninsula, which was fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman who was the driver and the tour guide, I asked her if she was annoyed at all these people in Dingle because at a certain time it's like Grand Central Station.
Right.
And she said, well, if not for the people who come to visit, my son and daughter would have had to leave to go to London or New York to earn a living. And now they're here.
Yeah.
And I've paid my mortgage off. And every winter I spend a month in Italy with my sister who lives there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it weren't for all the people who are coming,
Right.
none of that would have been possible.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting. It was a different perspective because I was thinking, oh, this is at one point this was this unspoiled, blah, blah, blah. But that's a romantic fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And a couple of days after that, I was walking downtown, and it felt like Grand Central Station. And I'm thinking, look at all these bleeping tourists. And then a voice says in my coconut, dude, you're one of them.
Well, right.
You're one of them. But
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock, they all get onto the buses and
Mm.
go away. And then the locals come out. And the locals aren't annoyed with the tourists. They just realize that these people are what makes it possible for them to continue to live the lives they live.
Right. Right.
So it's very interesting. I was on a boat sort of touring the peninsula as well. And have you ever been to Ireland, to that part?
I've never been to that part of Ireland, but yes, yeah,
Ireland, I'll have a spiritual connection to Ireland because as a kid, I went to a parochial school in Indianapolis with all Irish nuns and priests for 8 years. So, but it was very interesting to be in Ireland, to consider the history of Ireland. After our time in Dingle was done, I'd never been to Ireland before, so I decided to take a week to go to Dublin and explore that. And Dublin was fabulous. The culture, the architecture, the history.
Right.
It's a modern international city. And I enjoyed it, but I got to say that after a few days, I was thinking, I wonder what the folks at Foxy John's pub back in Dingle were doing tonight.
Yeah. I remember I think I was about 14 when I went to Ireland with my folks, and we took the tour of the Guinness factory. And
yes, did I?
And I was a young kid. I'd never really had beer before. I wasn't really a stout. But after you spend a day walking through, and smelling all the smells, and they let you, they hand you all of the hops and the everything that went into it, so you could actually take it and smell it. And then at the end, you go to there's a counter, and they've got these little cups of Guinness Stout, which of course was warm, obviously the only way to serve it. And I remember tasting it, and it was like it was just another one of those moments that I'll never forget. I'll never forget how it tasted. I'll never forget the experience. But if somebody had handed me that cup at the beginning of the tour, I would have hated it.
Exactly.
Can I share this will be off topic, a funny Ireland story on this same trip? My mother and my father and I, and we're staying in the middle of nowhere at this castle that was turned into a hotel, Dromoland Castle. And my father got called away on business, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and we've got this rental car. I'm like 14 years old. My mother was a terrible driver. She didn't learn how to drive until she was well into her 40s, and
And she was on the wrong side of the road.
she would not drive us anywhere. And there were no taxis or anything at all. So I at 14 had to drive this. It was an old little Renault, and grinding through the gears of the manual shifter on the wrong side, And I just crunched that thing. I can't imagine there was anything left of the clutch and the transmission by the time that week was done. But we toured all over Ireland.
Oh, I totally get it. I was not going to drive in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized, no, I'm not doing it. Uh, but it's funny. The first day, uh, the day after I flew into Shannon. I took the bus to Dingle.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, I'm out doing stuff before class starts, and I'm at the roundabout, as they call them there. They're not
Right.
road, they're roundabouts.
Yep.
And there's an arrow when you step to the sidewalk. You look down, there's an arrow that says, "Look this way."
Yeah. Yes.
I want you to get run over.
Exactly.
So I'm standing, waiting to cross, and there's a pickup truck, and there's a German Shepherd in this truck with a very nice red bandana tied around its neck,
Mm-hmm.
driving the truck. And I'm going, what, wait, what? And then I said, oh yeah, the steering wheel's on the other side.
Of course.
And so the truck goes by, and the dog's like, yeah, man, everything's under control. You just mind your business, go about what you're up to. Cool. Peace. Nothing but love for you. So,
um, I know that you kind of back to food. Um, you love to prepare meals and have things. Could you talk about having friends over and the kind of meals and the events that you like to do?
Yes.
I mean, beyond
Well,
your right, you have your famous garlic.
garlic orgies. I have
Yes.
a couple of garlic orgies a year where I invite friends who cherish the stinking rose to come and bring a favorite garlic dish for potlucks.
Mhm.
And so I do that a couple of times a year, and it's a lot of fun. There is not a vampire within 3 square miles of the house. Yeah, I think that when they do some intel and find out what the date is, and they say stay away from this place. But it's great, friends come and they bring their favorite garlic dishes, and we just chill out and eat garlic and listen to music. The desserts
Mhm.
do not have garlic,
Oh, well, that's good.
except one time someone bought an apple pie with roasted garlic, which is
Mm,
very sweet and mild, and
right.
that was delicious.
Oh, I bet.
And I'm at an age where when I was a youngster, going to out to a club or whatever was like, oh yeah, let's go out to this club. But I'm at an age now where it's like there's nothing on the street but pavement,
Hmm.
as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And I think my favorite way of hanging out with friends is just to have some folks over and to share a meal,
Hmm.
to share a meal, and maybe watch a flick,
Hmm.
just go down the rabbit hole and listen to watch some YouTube music videos,
Right.
and just just relax. I love to cook. I love to have uh, people over for potlucks or whatever, and I love to have one or two friends over
Hmm.
and to cook something that I know they will enjoy. Like I
Yeah.
have friends who are vegans. Uh,
Hmm.
I have friends who would chase down a cow and bring it to heel and just take bites out of it.
Yeah.
So, whatever people are into, it's fun. I made some coconut vegetable curry
Mm.
a few weeks ago that for a friend who is vegan.
Yeah.
And I'm not a vegan, but I play one on television. So
Right.
But I love eating. It's a very, it's very, obviously it's very healthy, but it's also very tasty.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I like going to friends' houses. Like I said, maybe a little early when people say, "Well, you're such a good cook, we can't cook for you."
Right.
Then yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
And it seems that there's some people who are more into the process of cooking than they are into the eating part of cooking. I fall into the second. I love making a meal that is really tasty, but I don't enjoy making it as much as I enjoy eating it.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're which camp you fall into, or if you're.
Well, I like the whole uh, series of activities. I like thinking about what to cook. I
Hmm.
like shopping. I like cooking. I like sharing the food with friends. I like eating.
Hmm.
So I like all of that. I like all of it. And when I'm cooking for folks, I know what kinds of things they like,
Hmm.
and I'll accommodate that. When I go to somebody's house, I know about the kinds of things that they like to cook, and I'll enjoy those things.
Hmm.
And so it's all good.
Yeah.
For me, it's all good. It's the community, the communal act is more important than the thing that's being shared. I mean,
Yeah.
and of course, you want um, to make and eat things that are cool with a person's dietary restrictions.
Right.
I don't do meat with friends who are vegetarian or
Yeah.
vegan,
Right.
but you know.
Um, anything that we missed? Anything that we haven't got? I never even looked at my. I have a whole like 2 pages of notes of things to talk about, and never even looked at one note. Anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Well, no, I think we covered the waterfront. One thing I would say is uh, that sharing food, breaking bread
Hmm.
is a holy act.
Hmm.
It's a holy act, and no matter who you're breaking bread with, no matter what kind of bread you break,
Hmm.
to to find something that the people you're with uh, enjoy,
Yeah.
and to share that food with them in companionship and conversation. It is, I can't think of a way to spend time with other human beings I enjoy more.
Well, Charles, this has been absolutely great. Thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. A great conversation. Uh,
I enjoyed it myself. Thanks very much for the invite. This was a gas. It was fun. There's a poem that's going to be in the next book
Hmm.
talking about food.
Oh,
Let let me share this with you.
please.
I just pulled it up.
Hmm.
It's called This Tomato. Tonight's dinner is a single tomato, a massive heirloom, ruby red, local, perfectly ripe, sliced thick, sprinkled with salt. I never bother with tomatoes in the off season. Those billiard balls shipped cross country, picked green and gassed to turn them red. When the good tomatoes are gone, my tongue's attention turns elsewhere. When I was young and waved goodbye to friends who packed their lives into cars and headed down the road, I always assumed I'd see them again someday. Some I never did, never will. I hope I'm here to greet next year's crop. But now I take nothing for granted. Tonight's tomato, this tomato, is an exercise in the ephemeral, a juicy, vine ripened reminder of time's blinking eye.